I dropped a whole 147-page contract document in.
The Applied AI Podcast, where tech meets ROI.
Mind blown.
I have here with me Josh Boshard of Savory. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself, your role at Savory, and what you're doing over there?
Jacob, nice to be on the show. Josh Boshard, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Savory. 8 years making it happen in restaurants. And I've actually worked with our founder, Andrew Smith. I'm into my 20th year. So I started in tech with him, moved into restaurants. We started with one location in his basement office, which is the craziest. And then, we've had a lot of restaurants ever since then. We have currently 375 restaurants, 13 brands under the Savory portfolio. And we're having fun in private equity, making it happen and working with our LPs to really provide great returns and build some cool restaurants. So my title is Chief Operating Officer, and love what I do. It keeps me busy every day. My mind works in a way that I have to have new things. And so when I'm working on insurance and operations and technology, it keeps my mind flowing. So love it.
That's great. And just for our listeners, let's clarify quickly what Savory is. So, would you qualify it or characterize it as a fund that owns restaurant chains or restaurant brands?
Yeah, we've really iterated the stack of what we do. We started out as franchisees first, and then we decided that we didn't want to be a franchisee anymore. We wanted to own the whole process. And so we moved from that side of it into a fund in 2018. And from that point on, what we do is we actually partner with founders in the restaurant industry, and they have something that's really great, but they're lacking some of the expertise from a platform level to be able to scale and grow. So we take our 60, 70 person team here at Savory, who are more or less just industry experts in what they are, and then apply that to growing and scaling. So all of our contract negotiation, all of our financials, marketing, development, real estate, everything that you can think for scaling growth, we're applying to that. So our model is our first fund was 100 million, our second fund was 100 million, and currently raising third fund for Savory right now. And we take that cash, so we go buy great restaurant brands and then scale and grow them, and then have exits. We've had some good ones. Swig was a great one that went to Larry H. Miller, an amazing group. And then with Mo Betta's, we took from 6 units to now they're at 75 today, and sold that business as well. So we have 13 other brands that we're doing this with, and getting to the next level.
That's great. It seems like it's, not just a fund, right? It's a vertically integrated infrastructure play as well as a fund. It's sort of like an interesting marriage of quite a few different models that seem to come together really well.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're able to see, and we're in this interesting position when we acquire a brand that the founders, they've typically signed their life away in personal guarantees and contracts, and so they have a specific tech stack, and we allow that to play out so they don't get hurt. But ultimately, we have a Savory tech stack that we can roll them into, which provides cost compression and margin opportunities for their P&L, and scalability. And that's the piece. You're a 5-unit brand and you're trying to figure out how to get to the next level. Having a 50-unit tech stack at 5 units is really unlocking their potential. And we have fun with that. And so when we see leading edge or bleeding edge technology that some of these smaller brands are using, it's so great for us because we get to A/B test that against some of our legacy product and then see what's really working. So our scope of the industry, from drive-through restaurants in Florida to fine dining in Scottsdale, we see it all, and then so we get a good picture of what's really happening and how to make these changes happen.
Yeah, so a lot of opportunity to trial and error via the many different brands, but also opportunity to leverage economies of scale and standardization. You and I have had some conversations around your goal to have a standardized tech stack that these new brands or existing brands can plug into, but that you can also easily divest from when it's time to exit. And that's an interesting challenge right there, right?
Yeah, the space that we're in, you'd mostly call it mid-market, emerging concept. We don't play well with enterprise systems. If you think you go to a Chipotle, all of their systems are mapped together. They're working really well, and they're able to understand what's going on there. And if you can understand all of your data in one place, you can play on top of that and really accelerate. The interesting part that we have is in emerging, we have some brands that are at 2 units. And so that's very different than 150 or 1,000 units. And so we have to play with the right type of third-party SaaS providers, partners who can scale and grow, and then ultimately be handed off to in that disposition event, so to the next buyer. And our tech stack has to also be seamless and talk to each other. And that's the interesting part of where we're at in this space, and really where AI starts making a difference in what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I know that you're going about this in a really smart way. You're very methodical and well researched on how you're going about this. And, this is an interesting challenge because even for, let's say, an enterprise, it's extremely complex to adopt new technologies, integrate them all the way through, evolve your systems, upgrade your systems, adopt new systems and processes. And now you're talking about doing that not just with a fairly sprawling enterprise, but a lot of sub enterprises beneath it, right? And each of these brands is its own entity, and then each of them has individual locations, which are sort of sub entities. And that's multiple levels of integration that really complicate the digital transformation challenge you're undergoing. But I know you're the right guy for this. Talk to me about how you're thinking about your role as the leader of this complex, multifaceted digital transformation challenge.
Yeah, most of my it's such a great question, but most of my time is spent thinking about how AI actually shows up in our business. So restaurants are a fascinating example because it's all about the human interaction. And what's interesting for us is that the goal of AI in restaurants isn't to make it more digital. It's actually the opposite. Our goal is to be behind the scenes with AI, with tech stack, with structure, so that the interaction with our guests feels more human, more analog, more hospitality driven. And when you're deploying tech, you have to be thinking about that front line from the beginning. You're thinking about that general manager who's in the store, who's seeing the customers, who's having to deal with it. And for a general manager in restaurant, if you don't know that side of it, they're looking at POS data and they're in systems for scheduling and their inventory and reservations and loyalty and reviews. On top of all those things, they're trying to run a P&L the right way. And so the biggest thing that we've learned in restaurants is general manager retention matters. And the way that a general manager runs a location is the key to success. And so for me, it's how do we design a tech stack for that store level that then is still available for here at us at the platform to make it all work easy for them, even if it's harder for us here.
Yeah, we talk a lot about invisible AI here on the podcast and, in Talbot West in general, that properly utilized AI and other related technologies should run in the background, making things work more efficient, but it doesn't mean they have to be customer facing and change the customer experience. And I fundamentally agree with you, especially in industries such as hospitality, that human touch matters more than ever. So your best leverage of AI is how to support the humans to do their job well. And even in, like, let's say tech companies where you call and you just get a robot and it's very kind of cookie cutter and doesn't really help you that much. I mean, it seems even in industries like that, they would be better off maybe leveraging some human touch on the front lines, but that's far even more true in hospitality or other human-centric industries. So I love how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the tech that's being deployed in restaurants right now. We have a third-party company that connects to our camera systems, and the cameras can then tell how our employees are doing, the speed at which they're doing it, the drive-through times, if we actually put an item in a bag for a to-go order, and all of that is being um, analyzed in a very different way than we have in the past. And so you look at just AI being used in cameras or AI being used in drive-through timing, that allows us to see into the restaurants very differently than before. Or if you're understanding your employee sentiment at the store level, what's actually happening versus maybe a general manager who's not telling you everything that's happening there, or an area manager who's trying to explain exactly what's going on. We're so bullish on connecting systems to then empower our people. And instead of being, if you're hearing something that's going on, instead of being punitive, you can actually go back in and help that general manager, assistant manager, AGM become something more by empowering them through training, learning, and training. And so, just such a cool time to be alive on this using AI.
Absolutely. And one other point I want to drop in is that people talk about AI often as though it's a thing, and really it's a very diverse range of technologies, as you well know. You can have predictive models that crunch a bunch of data and try to help you optimize and forecast, and that's going to be, some machine learning or different types of stuff. You have your kind of video recognition type stuff, like you're saying, that can help you. It's a very different, and often there are multiple types of AI, deployed in a single use case. For example, your camera system probably has, a bunch of image recognition stuff with sentiment analysis and other types of analysis built in. So it's probably an ensemble of technologies there. And I don't know, there's just such a wide range, from using a chat bot to create marketing materials to using some advanced machine learning to analyze a ton of data for some business outcome. So kind of thinking of the vast scope and range of all the different sub-technologies included under this AI umbrella, and then all of the different use cases across your restaurants and in Savory as an umbrella operation. Where do you see the most promising deployments of AI to create the most value?
Um, we're in such an interesting space right there. We have brands like we have Sicilian Butcher. If you've ever been, we have 7 locations, just open in Nashville and San Antonio. They started in Scottsdale, and our experience there is all back end AI that's talking to each other. And so when you check in, we know who you are and some of your preferences. Maybe you like to sit in a certain section, or you come back every 3 weeks. And but then we may know your favorite dish, or if it's your anniversary, and we can then deploy that tech to then make that experience that much better for you. But we also have this place where it's from Sicily. It's this authentic experience. And so we actually don't use handhelds for taking the order. And so it's a balance of that hospitality and improving AI and using technology to make that experience the best. But you think about it, you have a server who's listening intently and taking your order without punching on a thing like, hey, how are you doing today? Good. Okay, is this what you want? That's not the experience what we're having. And we're still empowering tech behind the scenes in this analog transaction that they're having. And that's the hard part in this is really making it work for the customer without them feeling like there's a robot and they place their order and they tap on a screen and then the food comes out with another robot. That's not what people are looking for today, at least what we're seeing. They want more experience in human interaction, and they want to be in an environment that feels hospitable, right? So kind of
Yeah,
crazy
no,
all around.
I love that. I want to double click on that a little bit because it's using technology to have a more human experience. And that is really, really cool from the customer facing perspective. So that's amazing because the technology and the degree to which it's remembering and personalizing and prompting these human service providers on what that customer's previous history is and what the favorite dish and all this, right? It's actually allowing a much greater degree of personalization, which is then going to be delivered through the human experience, the human touch. So it's the perfect kind of pairing of human AI, each sort of contributing where they're uniquely valuable. So that's really cool. I want to transition a little bit. So we've talked a lot about the customer facing side, and we could go for a long time just on
Yeah.
different roles of AI versus human interaction for the customer experience. Let's talk more on an infrastructure level, a top level kind of architecture infrastructure perspective. What are some of the challenges you're facing either on a per brand, per restaurant, or Savory as a whole? You can talk on any of those levels or across all of them. What are some of the integration challenges you're facing, and what do you see some of the roles of AI? And again, we're talking about AI as a whole umbrella of diverse technology. So anything you want to dive into there?
Yeah. One of the things that has just opened my mind is going through an AI boot camp where we learned agentic coding and understanding LLMs and what that looks like for someone individually. And a huge shout out to Aaron Newton at Thanks. He ran that. I'm pretty sure he doesn't sleep at all. So he's so excited about AI right now that it's contagious and everyone wants to be around that. But the way that he's talking about his SaaS platform, and Thanks is a loyalty product within the restaurant space. But the way that he's talking about the transformation of him as a single person and the 30 people who work with him, or 100, I don't know who are there, but he says that customer service agents that used to do certain things are now vibe coding essentially with him. He's training this whole digital transformation of what they were into something so much more. And listening to that got me thinking. I mean, I'm like, all right, I got to get in this. I've always been really good at being able to search, and I'd Google search things, and I'd find things in ways that most people couldn't, by time and date and scope and parentheses and all of that, right? So you start applying that to chat, which was just transactional, and it was like I was underutilizing chat for the last couple of years. And then I went through this and started seeing the ability to do really incredible things. But I'm starting to understand that it's like a gaming system. It's kind of addicting, and all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and the agents that are working on this project for me right now have me so excited about life. It's kind of taking all the deficiencies I have and having 3 or 4 people alongside me working, right? And so when I look at that, it's exciting, and obviously business is always speed of service. It's always how fast you can get to the next level, and it's a little scary to think about what's coming on that side. Last night I could have built a whole system for in HTML. I could design a flow and map and what we should be building. And I look at that and I go, I didn't have that ability months ago. And now I have the ability to overnight create a business. I think that I should probably create an AI sponsor, AI recovery companion business, because I think in the future, AI addiction is going to be real.
It'll be the new drug.
Yeah, I mean, it is that exciting when you start getting into it. And as I've gone with my teams and started training and teaching them and showing them what the power of agents working on our data, it is transformational. And getting our platform team to understand what that looks like then allows you to start saying, okay, what systems? And so you take that and what SaaS systems are we putting in place today that may not be there in a year, which may be able to be pulled inside and done on this front. And you start thinking about contract term lengths and providers of data and trying to aggregate all of that historical data. It's one of the most important pieces of restaurant. And so you start asking, do I build internally? Do I put a team together? Do I have a data scientist and data engineers? And do I, data analysts and developers to build this? Do you go outside to have outside help? Or are there third-party companies that can aggregate that data? And right now, there's some tech that's working and some that's not. And I think there's a lot of people who are saying, yeah, we do AI. They don't understand the ontology process, the scrubbing, making sure that your data is clean, and the security aspect of that piece. And for me, that's the most important is keeping our data where it needs to be, learning from it, making sure that there's no hallucinogenic actions within that data, and then getting all of our mapping together so that we can make actionable decisions. If we know that a customer had a bad experience, and it was because we rolled out an LTO, a limited time offer product, maybe it's a new smoothie, well, we can act on that faster, where those disparate systems didn't talk to each other before. We had to just like say, oh, we have 30 people who didn't like this product. Well, is it attributed to this? And it took way too much time. I think that this new infrastructure that's coming out is going to empower restaurants to be so much better than they've been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And you touched on an important thing, which is the complex integration decisions that have to be made and how the data is stored, where the data is stored, which types of SaaS you need to plug in and all of that. It's a very complex puzzle. I'm absolutely convinced that the future is data. Data is the big competitive moat, and that everything else will be a composable, modular, plug and play architecture where you can easily modify, update individual functions at will, from probably a kind of more universal marketplace type thing. So I'm convinced that's the future, but how long it takes us to get there, I'm not sure. And in the meantime, we have to deal with these monolithic SaaS products, and which one do you want to get married to and for how long, and all the pros and cons of them. So I think the future will look very different than it does today, but also you got to like deal with today and make your peace with what's available right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting space that we're all in, trying to figure all this out. And next level. I look at the next phase, and it's already here. Agents and how we're using agents to build. Yeah, I look at Coinbase, cryptocurrency provider. They've launched an agent that actually places trades for you right now based on market conditions. And so you hand an agent your money and say, go make money with that. That's very wild. And so then I start saying, okay, how does it apply to what I'm doing? How does that show up in restaurants? Well, I think those agents will be monitoring all sales and labor and inventory and reservations. But then they're going to be adjusting forecasts and making it a better, smoother transition. You think about going to a restaurant on a Friday night and it's 7 p.m. and there's a line out the door, and you're like, why is it taking so long? It's purely staffing. It's not understanding, the context of what's happening around them, not having enough product, whatever it is, where now these agents can prepare you for that. Okay, you're trending at 2 p.m. higher, you're going to need to bring in additional staff. Let's make sure to get that. And so I'm so excited about the way that restaurants are going to be in the future based on how agents will work with us in that tech stack. Agents acting on our behalf to make that process and that hospitality actually be empowered.
Absolutely. And there's so much talk about agentic AI agents. And usually people are talking about large language models that are given specific mandates to go take an action on your behalf. I'd be pretty scared of the Coinbase one myself.
Right?
I mean, I interact with large language models so much and have quite a lot of familiarity with their strengths and weaknesses, and how you can scaffold them to improve their performance and all of that. So I see them as incredibly useful in the overall stack, but you've also got to be very careful how you deploy them and what kind of permissions you give them. They are not truly intelligent. They're an extremely sophisticated form of kind of autocomplete prediction, but so sophisticated that they can pass for real intelligence in many situations. And that's where you can genuinely leverage their capabilities, but while safeguarding against all the downsides or the kind of floppy reasoning that they can have and all of that. So, and you mentioned hallucinations earlier. There's a lot you can do to reduce or even in some cases eliminate the possibility of hallucination. So you got to work carefully with them, but yes, all very exciting stuff.
Last night I was I'm going on a ski trip and I need new skis and bindings. So I put in my height, my weight, my skiing ability in a couple different LMs. So I put it in Grok and Claude and Chat and Gemini and Perplexity, and I put the same script in each one. And what came back was so different on what type of skier I was, or the skis I needed, or the bindings that needed to go with those skis. And so you have 5 examples there of very different output that it's telling you should be doing. And I know what I need, and I know the skis that I need. And so it's interesting to go through that model and understand there is no perfect solution, right? And it's skewed to how it's programmed and what it's thinking. So I kind of love that going through that process. I'm like, it's so easy to see what works and what doesn't within that stack of tools.
And that's a really cool little test you did there. Which model had the output you thought was the best advice or closest to what you were looking for?
I've been in Claude lately a lot, but I usually prompt Claude through Chat, and that seemed to work the best. Chat seemed to tell me closest to what I was expecting and where to find those. And then, Gemini actually did a really good job as well. So there was kind of this place. Now, I definitely use Claude on different solutions in that, but in that specific going out and searching, that seemed to be the best.
Absolutely. And what we're finding and what I've been doing a lot of is when you provide the right context engineering, you can take the performance and applicability of these outputs through the roof. So you just go on to plain old vanilla Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. It gives you kind of usually subpar. And then if you engineer the context correctly, whether that's through a Gemini gem, a Claude project, now Claude skills are taking it even further. And so the way you engineer that context, the way you give it top level mandates and instructions engineered into the system, and then the way you prompt it, all of these things flow into taking the quality of the output and making it so much better.
Yeah, I think it's very true to the businesses that we're building. Like system readiness enables AI, but AI enables transformation, right? And so the better you put in, the more output you're going to get. That happens at an LLM model when you just finding things, and that definitely happens when you're building a tech stack that is empowering or enabling AI to empower your business. So interesting place to be.
Absolutely. And it's also true in human to human interactions. If your logic is very undefined, loose and floppy, you're not going to get the same kind of response or, outcome from a human to human interaction as if you're very clear on what you want and then you communicate it really effectively in a way that is also, obviously creating an opportunity and aligned with what the other person wants.
Yeah, exactly right. Man, new world.
Absolutely. Well, hey, it's been great having you. This is all exciting stuff, what you're doing over there. I'm excited to keep up with it. So thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.